Perhaps no other attraction embodied the spirit of Epcot Center better than the Imagination Pavilion. In a time where the likes of Frozen and Nemo were nowhere to be found in the parks, Journey to Imagination blazed its own trail. Before Pirates of the Caribbean crossed the line from Disney ride to pop culture juggernaut, the Royal Purple Figment had a cult following. With no movies or TV shows, it's not uncommon to meet people who say their favorite Disney character is the one most fans never heard about. But how did it cultivate a fan base? Well, we'll discuss that and more as we find our dreams in Epcot. Welcome back to the series where I compare a Disney attraction to what came after it, and see which one I prefer. Today we look at the Imagination Pavilion in Epcot. But before we get started, I'd like to thank my viewer King who suggested this ride. He made two requests, so this is the first of two I'll do for him. There are three versions of this attraction, but the second version won't factor into the conclusion. I wasn't going to the parks in the 2000s and early 2010s, so I never got a chance to ride Journey into your imagination. But we'll cover it to show the full history of this pavilion. Also, let me know one of your Disney memories. I want to do a series in the future where I talk about our times in the parks. And if you've never been, feel free to ask a question you may have. But that's enough setup. Let's go back to the early 80s where we find our first version of Epcot's Imagination. March 5th, 1983. Journey into Imagination, sponsored by Kodak, opens in Future World. Right off the bat, guests are greeted by a reverse waterfall. It sets the tone that this is something you haven't experienced on your vacation as of yet. Once in the show building, parkgoers find themselves in a fairly nondescript queue. A mural depicting different ride scenes are painted on a powder blue wall. The ride vehicles are your standard omni-movers you'd see on Spaceship Earth or other slow-moving dark rides at the time. One of the first things you'll see while on board is a small video screen. It has a silhouette of a man on a flying machine, sucking up wishes in the night sky. A man starts singing a song about imagination as you fly through a papier-mâché cloud. The Omni-Mover then turns to face an animatronic of the man and device you saw in the silhouette. He greets the riders and explains that he is the Dream Finder. He then tells guests about the ingredients he uses to make his favorite creation. You meet the star of the show and the first time the world was introduced to Figment. He pops out of a pot in the back of the ship, and the duos discuss all the things they'll need to go on their imagination adventure. You then embark on your first journey entering a steampunk area, with all types of metal machines with large liquid cooling stations. The next room is all about the arts. You see Dreamfinder using a rainbow brush to paint a giant mural of a variety of plant life. Next to him is a carousel made of papier-mâché animals. At the end of the scene, the music changes from lighthearted to creepy organ music. The bright colors now give way to a dreary color palette, and you have now entered the literature section of Imagination. It mostly focuses on the works of Edgar Allan Poe, with the crow sound effect playing throughout the scene. Fiber optic words changing shape line the dark walls, and Figment is trying the whole time to hide from the spooky imagery. The next scene has the music change once more, this time for a more upbeat Broadway style. You see Figment backstage trying on different costumes for the laser light show we see later on in the scene. At the conclusion of the light show, you hear Dreamfinder ask, "What about science?" You then enter a tunnel with various items passing overhead, with Dreamfinder standing next to a machine while he watches a video of a raindrop. You are shown a video of flowers blooming as raindrops fall. You then get a better look at Dreamfinder's machine as he stands in front of a globe with nature videos playing all around the room. You see an animated Figment floating around in a bubble, which is a transition to Figment posing for different photos. Tying into the Kodak film sponsorship, there's a large flash overhead and guests look up to see a giant screen as they're shown a picture of everyone in their ride car. Once the ride concluded, guests could go upstairs to ImageWorks. It was what Disney dubbed an Imagination Playground. Kids could play with various games and computers they had on display. This was also where the classic picture of Michael Jackson in the Rainbow Tunnel took place. There was even more fun to be had outside the show building. There was a place outside with many fountains that had jumping balls of water. They also had dancing fountains that had a stream of water jumping from one platform to another. As per the contract with Kodak, they were guaranteed a new attraction by the turn of the century. On October 10th, 1998, the original Journey into Imagination would close its doors for good, breaking the hearts of a generation who grew up loving this ride. October 1st, 1999, the newly minted Journey to Your Imagination opened in Epcot. The attraction was rethemed to be an Imagination Lab. It had a quasi-theatrical connected universe, sharing characters from Flubber and Honey I Shrunk the Kids, with Eric Idle from Monty Python fame reprising his role from Honey I Shrunk the Audience 3D movie as Dr. Nigel Channing. It starts off like all the great ones do. They insult the riders by telling them they don't have much going on upstairs, already a great sign that this is going to be an all-time classic. Guests are then taken to various labs for testing, the first of which being the Sound Lab. The room starts off pitch black, but you could slowly hear a train passing overhead. There's also a Haunted Mansion Easter egg, where you see a giant green magnifying glass and Channing says, wait, do I have to call him Dr. Channing? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he says, is this looking glass actually magnifying, or is it just your imagination? Maybe this won't be so bad after all. The next lab is the Illusion Lab. It shows various optical illusions with animals appearing and disappearing behind glass, and after literally 33 seconds, you're in the next laboratory. Welcome to the Color Lab, where they play animal sounds and a screen changes color. What does this have to do with color? Anyway, if you thought 33 seconds in the Illusion Lab was too long, good news, because this only takes 20 seconds before you're in the Connection Lab. This is where you stare at dots at the wall and make connections like they're constellations. Supposedly this will increase the imagination you as a writer do not have. You then enter the Gravity Lab, where you enter an upside down house. And now you finally completed your training that took all of 5 minutes. I know this sounds like I'm breezing through these, but trust me, there isn't much here to talk about. You get your imagination checked once more, and you've been cured of being dumb and imaginationless. You break the scanner and all your thoughts spill out on top of the ceiling. You hear the familiar voice of Figment, and my god, this was so much worse than I ever thought. I never actually watched a full video of this ride, and it's 6 minutes of my life I'll never get back. Just look at everything that filled the original. Here you barely have time to know what's going on, and it just seems so loud and annoying. ImageWorks was moved from upstairs to right after the ride ended. It keeps some of the computer games and interactive objects, but now it's more of a glorified gift shop. Fans revolted against this ride, and to no one's surprise, Disney had to scramble to correct their mistake. Journey into Your Imagination barely lasted 2 years before closing on October 8th, 2001. So how would the third venture into imagination fare for Disney? We would get our answer on June 2nd, 2002, as we got Journey into Imagination with Figment. What begs the question, did we not have Figment in the 1983 version? Anyway, Dr. Nigel Channing returns, as does the labs, but instead of imagination, we have the 5 senses. Although the queue feels more like a doctor's office than a science lab. We do get a callback to Dreamfinder as we see a door with the name Dean Finder on it. I guess it's better than nothing. The ride starts off as you see a large TV wall with logos for various labs you'll see as the ride goes on. Then Channing talks how each sense is linked to imagination. Figment shows up to mess with the good doctor. The first lab is the Sound Lab, just like the previous iteration. This time Channing tests our hearing with different tones for each ear. Figment hijacks the test and does the train gag like the previous ride. Figment starts singing the iconic One Little Spark song from the original attraction. It serves as a transition from scene to scene and explains how each scene affects your imagination. We now enter the Sight Lab, and it looks like a generic doctor's office with different eye charts. A silhouette of Figment is shown in the chart in front of you, and it uses the letters to spell out his name. You see the optical illusion from the previous attraction en route to the Smell Lab. A giant slot machine lined with different gas canisters filled with scents such as rose, mint, and cherry. Unfortunately for the riders, it always ends up on skunk, so make sure to hold your nose at this point. You're then informed that due to the smell, you will not be allowed in the touch and taste labs. Which is probably for the best. A touch and taste lab in Disney sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Figment then invites everyone to his house to play in the upside down house from the last ride. This time is just a little bit more colorful. At its conclusion, Channing comes around to Figment, and the two become friends. They agree that imagination is a blast, and a mini explosion happens, and you see Figment in various forms, and the two sing a duet of One Little Spark. ImageWorks remains mostly the same, this time with just more Figment souvenirs. The original attraction has an argument to be the best Disney attraction ever made. So much is crammed in every scene, and both Figment and Dreamfinder are instantly likable. It's not hard to see why they became popular with little promotion outside of the ride itself. With having one of the best theme songs and post-shows, it's no wonder why this was such a fan favorite for OG Epcot fans. There was even a Figment and Dreamfinder comic book series that lasted 5 issues. It was actually pretty well received. Dreamfinder was even the inspiration for South Park character Mayor of Imagination Land, along with a different version of One Little Spark with a different chorus. I can remember spending what seemed like hours playing in the old ImageWorks. and also the fountains outside during the really hot days. This pavilion had so much to do and was so different than anything else you could do in Disney World. After watching Journey into Your Imagination, I have a new respect for Journey into Imagination with Figment. It's still widely considered one of the least popular attractions in all of Disney World currently, but it still has some highlights. I do like Figment's open house. He has his toilet on the ceiling and still manages to keep the toilet seat down. He's truly a better man than I'll ever be. Also, the ending scene with Idol and Figment singing their version of One Little Spark hits me right in the nostalgia. But that's ultimately the issue. I just wish I had more of the original ride, more than what we have now. So should come as no surprise, but the original ride wins hands down. It just does everything better than each of the other versions. Should the current version be as hated as it is now? Probably not. It's definitely hurt by what came before it, but it's leaps and bounds better than the second version. But it's cool to see a character like Figment get over with fans with very little press. I don't think anything like that could happen again, nor do I think Disney would even try. But tell me what you think. Is the original better? Or am I dumb and the newest version is best? But that'll do it for this episode. Next week will be another viewer requested one. So bring a winter jacket and passport, because things are about to get chilly in Scandinavia. But drop a like if you enjoyed this, subscribe if I earned it, and as always, thank you so very much for watching.